The good old clap, take one.
That's right.
How many of you knew what you wanted to be when you were 7 years old? I did. I wanted to be a world champion.
Hey, is there honesty involved in this podcast? Can we be honest?
You can shut your fucking lips.
And then I'll just say, put them up, what? Let's go.
He's like, you look too pretty on the wave. Get ugly.
We can talk about DMT if you want.
I thought you were boxing.
All right, so we have the Laura Enever on the lineup. Laura, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm stoked to be on.
So how are you doing today? Where are you today? And who are you with?
So I'm in my home in Narrabeen, in my sort of office that's been turned into an absolute explosion of my bag from Newcastle, washing that hasn't been done the last few weeks. It's just a bit of a explosion in here. But no, I've been surfing at Narrabeen all morning. It's pretty small this morning. The contest is meant to start tomorrow, but I feel like it's going to be a lay day. And yeah, I'm the wild card in Narrabeen. So yeah, trying to get back in comp mode and like just get my boards ready. I'm like, what did I used to do? But it's kind of cool. I feel like it's a new version of me going back into the contest. So it's pretty cool.
I love that. And I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I miss you. You stepped away from the tour in, I think, 2017, and you went off into the wild blue yonder, which we're going to talk about. But now you're back. You were unquestionably the breakout star of the WSL's analyst team in Newcastle. And now, as you pointed out, you've rightly been awarded the wild card into the Rip Curl Narrabeen Cup presented by Corona. So 2021, year of the ox, year of Laura Enever. Like, what's going on? How do you feel about this year so far?
Oh, it's absolutely crazy. I feel like last year it was such a sleepy year. We bought out my film Undone, and then I didn't really have any plans this year. Like, it was you kind of just to chase some swells and obviously just without being able to travel the way that we used to, like I kind of just didn't have that many solid plans set in place. And then, like I'd been talking to the WSL about the commentary stuff for a while and was pretty keen to give that a go. And so I took that on. And then the next thing we know, we've got a CT coming to Narrabeen, and I was awarded the wild card. So it just like in a matter of months. And then also on top of that, I got invited into the Red Bull Cape Fear event down at Shippies. So it went from being like this sleepy little year with no plans to just like boom, like back-to-back stuff going on. And hence why, rooms and garages and everything are just an absolute mess. I'm like, I'm not used to being this busy again. So it's super fun though. And I think whenever I feel like I'm too busy, I just think back to all the time I had sitting around gardening and doing nothing last year. So it's been so exciting just to be moving again. And yeah, it's this year's just gone from like nothing to just like all these things, like when it rains, it pours.
Well, with regards to your CT wildcard, have you been doing anything specific to prepare? I saw Mick Fanning shaved his head and he dropped about 20 pounds of dad weight in Johnny Gannon's garage. And you don't need to do any of that because you're already kind of fighting fit. But when you found out about the wild card, did anything switch for you where you're like, well, I'm going to start doing X, Y, and Z to kind of get my mind and my body and my boards and my surfing approach ready for the CT?
Yeah, I think for me, when I found out I was getting the wild card, it was more so just surfing more, because I feel like when, like with big wave surfing, it's kind of like doing more on-land training and preparation and the small days I'd kind of pass up surfing and just be like, oh, I'll take my twin fin out and just sort of fluff around in the water. And then so to get back in like comp training mode is just like surfing every day, no matter what the conditions, and actually just like getting out there. Like I think I kind of became a bit of a wave snob when I like big wave surfing. You're like, oh, anything under like a couple of feet, you're just like, I'll take the soft top, or I'll, just go lay out there and take my like flippers out some days. But so as soon as I got the wild card, I was like, okay, I'm out there surfing as much as I can. And the other thing was I got rid of all my contest boards. Like, so I had to call up Darren DHD and I was like, I need some more boards. Like I kind of like gave back all my CT comp boards and like changed my whole quiver into like a big wave quiver. And yeah, so I need more comp boards. And I've actually even dusted off some old ones that I found at my parents' house just to try them. I was, like this one board that I loved surfing at lowers, and I'm like trying all these different boards now. And but no, it's been fun. Other than that, it's just kind of like Pilates, hanging, just at home, just surfing though.
I was going to ask about the psychology of surfing big waves and then translating that to small wave performance, because I've heard it before, like even if you're surfing small waves for contests, like if you're out there surfing big waves and really pushing your comfort level in terms of performance surfing in big waves, some surfers have articulated that, like, yeah, even if it's a 2-foot section that looks kind of radical, I actually have that much more confidence to hit it that much harder because kind of the fear factor, the hesitation factor has been reprogrammed because I have been surfing big waves. Have you found that at all, just in kind of your transition from big wave surfing to sort of small to medium wave surfing?
Yeah, I think, besides being a wave snob, I think it is like when I do get out there and there is chunky sections to hit, like I'm definitely not as afraid to go for it. I think, I kind of always had a pretty amazing wipeout reel of like going for these chunky sections anyway, but I feel like, I think I've just started reading waves better as well. Just like the more I've been surfing these big perfect waves, the more I feel like I've just become, I don't know, just getting really accustomed to how they're all breaking. And I still get pretty blown up on end sections though. I've still got a good wipeout reel.
Now, since you stepped away from full-time CT competition and started tackling big wave competition, have you changed the way you train and the way that you kind of design your physique? Like, do you pack muscle in different places intentionally? Or I always think of the sort of the Michael Jordan thing of like when he switched and failed at baseball for a few years, he still had to like change his body to become a baseball player. And then when he changed back to basketball, he had to change back to become a basketball player. I'm wondering if there is any kind of intentional body work that you've done since you've left CT competition for big wave surfing specifically, and if you think that'll actually be advantageous now that you're surfing a CT again.
Yeah, I think, the last few years I really started just working on, especially just like building up my legs and just core and everything. Like, I think for me, surfing those big waves, it's all about injury prevention. Like, obviously, like you want to be as strong as you can to like get through the bumps. And I think that was the funniest thing with when I went into big wave surfing. I did feel like a lot of people thought I wasn't strong enough or I was just going to get hurt really easily because the first time I surfed Jaws, my knee just got blown apart and like my second wave. So I think that was pretty eye-opening to be like, okay, cool, like I want to do this, but I need to get strong. I need to look after my body. I need to be flexible. So I think for me it's like weight training mixed with like I love Pilates and strengthening and being flexible as well because like I'm pretty like stiff. So I think just having that flexibility, and just like really looking after, like I did dislocate my shoulder a few years ago. And just like doing little bits and pieces to like prevent those injuries from happening again. So I did change a lot from being on tour. It's funny though, like I did feel like when I started doing all this training for big wave surfing, I did start surfing better in like just regular surfing anyway. And I'm just like, right. Oh, cool. And I feel like I always thought like, why couldn't I do it all? Like, why couldn't I do the big wave surfing and the comp surfing? But I think for me, I was just so stubborn that I just like, when I fell off tour and I was like, I just wanted to like go for it and just go for the big wave thing for a while and just see where it could take me, and kind of just threw away all my QS rankings and seedings and everything, which was like a pretty like, I did think about the decision a lot, but like even this year I did a couple of QSs at the start of the year, and like just starting from the first round, like if I want to get back on tour, I got to go all the way and work my way back there. So
is that something you're thinking about? Are you thinking about taking another run at the QS?
I didn't actually think I would again, like a couple of years ago, but because we can't travel and because it's not as easy to just see a swell and pack a few big boards and go, well, it's like practically impossible for us now. So I think I was, kind of considering it at the start of the year. And I don't think I'll be able to qualify for the Challenger Series this year. Well, no, I haven't. I only did one QS at the start of the year, so I won't be able to get on the Challenger Series. But so maybe next year. I haven't made any decisions yet, and I think it's kind of good. I think I've decided that no plan's the best plan.
Well, I was going to get to this a little later, but I actually think this is the right time to talk about it too, because fortunately for me, LinkedIn reminded me that I've been at the WSL ASP for 15 years, so I'm a bit of a dinosaur. But when we were talking about this episode and we were kind of going back and forth, we're like, oh, what was it like? And what was it like when she was on tour? And I was saying, look, like you have to remember that surfing is a community obsessed with the cult of youth, right? So like everyone's always looking for like, who's the next big thing? Who's the next big thing? And I said personally and professionally, like I vividly remember Laura's performance. I think it was like 2008, Haleiwa. I think you were like the Triple Crown Rookie of the Year.
Yeah,
and it was kind of mid stride for Steph, right? Steph had won a bunch of world titles and like Tyler hadn't really hit yet as a title contender. And you were like fast and loose. And there was all this attention on you talent-wise, especially when you qualified, you know? And so it's interesting for me because you're still so young and you've kind of said, oh, look, I've gotten much stronger. I feel like I'm surfing much better. And I'm wondering how you consider your own talent right now in terms of CT surfing and how it would stack up against the current crop of women on tour.
Yeah, I mean, good question. Thanks for that. It's pretty cool to look back and like I did have such an awesome junior career and just flew through and just had the best time and then qualified pretty easily at like 17, won the World Juniors at 17 and like had all these amazing results and then got on tour and then also had like breakthrough performances in my first couple of years. And then it wasn't until like, I think I remember like my second year on tour, I just like had this like losing streak and got sick and just like fell in this rut and like had all this like pressure that I didn't know how to handle because I was always so like happy-go-lucky and just like had no cares in the world. And then I think I just like didn't know how to cope with all that stress then. And then I think I just like couldn't really find my feet and like lost confidence. And it's like, it's so, I've been speaking to all the young girls on tour now and just like try to just like share my experience because I think that was just me being young and not really, you know, getting the help, the mental help that I needed, like the, you know, psychologists or sports psychologists, like, and I'm such a stubborn person that like I was actually saying yesterday to a few of the younger girls that when I think my second year on tour I decided I was going to study sports psychology so I could be my own sports psychologist instead of just like, you know, eventually going and, you know, working out how to handle the stress and how to handle the pressure and like how to handle the expectations and stuff. But you know, I always knew that I had I had the talent and I always knew that I could, if I, you know, got the waves, could perform and, you know, do really well in contests. It was just like that mental side for me that just let me down and I just, you know, go into heats and just like crumble and, you know, be so scared of losing and just more scared of like, I remember like the fear of falling off the tour was like the worst thing in the world back then. And like, it's so funny because now after leaving for 4 years and just like making that decision to go, if I went back on tour, I would not be scared to fall off. Like, it's just, I'd have a totally different headspace. Like, I feel like I just go on and be like, and I guess the way the format is now as well, like you could jump onto, and then if you fall off, you have the Challenger Series right after. Like you actually have 2 chances to stay on tour in the year. And so I feel like even that is like, and I think just like so many people are getting more used to going on tour, falling off. The level's so high now, like, getting on and off tour is just is quite a normal thing that, you know, so many of the amazing surfers do. So
yeah, and I mean in my non-podcast day job and doing like strat and design on like the tours and all this other stuff, like it's something that comes up quite a lot. And I've been talking about it on the podcast actually a lot in the last few episodes about, you know, if you think of other sports, there's kind of a built-in matriculation system, like, and I'll use American sports as a comp, but it's like if you play in the NBA, you play in the NFL, you genuinely go through high school and then you go through college And whether or not you're like actually going to class or they're pushing you through is kind of immaterial. But the end result is like, you're probably not starting your professional career at the elite level until you're early to mid 20s, right?
Yeah.
But in surfing, yourself and so many others, it's sort of like you're a teenager.
Yeah,
and
totally.
You're not only are you not physically mature in terms of what you're going to look like as an adult or how strong you're going to get, but there's the psychological thing too. And you brought it up, so I'm curious, like, would you have preferred to have a system similar to that where it was like you didn't feel the pressure to qualify at 17, you actually were going to qualify at 22 or something?
Yeah. I mean, that's so interesting because I remember when I qualified at 17, I was like, I remember hearing about Taj, I think, turning down his first year when he qualified. And I remember like rolling into the Narrabeen car park and I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to take it. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think I'm ready. And everyone was like, you are crazy. Get the hell on tour. Like this. And like, it is good that I did jump on tour and I did have that no expectation. And when I did surf with that freedom in those first few comps, like I got third in my first ever CT. And then the next year got second to Steph in the final at Snapper. And I always like jumped on tour and always had that freedom at the first contest. And then it always seemed like I fell apart, I don't know, throughout the year. And, but yeah, like I think going back to that, I don't know, I look at Caroline now getting on tour and doing so incredible. Like she's obviously such a talent, so young, but I think just having that support system and people there to like really be like, oh, when things get tough, like just to have that, sports psychologist there to just chat you through things that like probably just have that support.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and it goes through cycles too. Like, I mean, we were around on tour when, Mick Fanning traveling with a Swiss ball and like focusing on his fitness, everyone's like, ew, like what a weirdo. Like,
Totally.
And now it's like, it's the complete opposite. And I think it's the same with like, as you pointed out, like sports psychologists, et cetera, and the support system around there. You mentioned your home community of Narrabeen. I claim a tiny slice of that, having lived on Goodwin Street when I was younger.
Yeah, you can pass.
Yeah, sure.
Pull you in.
What is, for an outsider, someone who's never been there, what is the community of Narrabeen like in your own words? How would you describe it? Yeah,
it's a pretty awesome place. I mean, yeah, like I grew up here in Narrabeen, joined the Board Riders Club when I started surfing when I was 9, and just like grew up surfing with all the guys. It's like a really, really close-knit, tight community, and the Board Riders Club is it's very like a very just close-knit, I guess, and supportive, but also passionate, like so passionate. Like our Board Riders Club, we have all these tag teams, like they're pretty massive contests in Australia, and Narrabeen's always like the most fierce like Board Riders Club there, and so passionate. And there's just so much rich history at Narrabeen as well. And I think, the club's definitely evolved and changed since like some of their like pretty intense stories from back in the day, but it's still stayed the same where like everyone is like lives and breathes the club here. So it's pretty amazing. But yeah, like you have that incredible support, but then also you have that little bit of pressure just because like you don't feel like you're surfing just for you. You feel like you're surfing for the whole community a little bit. So it is really cool and tough at the same time. For sure. And if you had to describe the wave at Narrabeen, because it's a new wave for most of the fans out there, they've never seen it. What is the wave like at Narrabeen? It's so fun. It's one of the most consistent breaks on like the East Coast. One of the most consistently fun waves in Sydney, and especially the Northern Beaches, which is like this stretch of beaches just north of Sydney. It's like, so we've got, a bunch of beautiful beaches here, but Narrabeen, and there's like a lake running out in the alley, and the most ideal conditions for Narrabeen is like a northeast or a big east swell. It looks like we're only probably going to get some, like a lot of south swell days, but at the moment the banks are still fun, and there's always like a really contestable wave. So it's, it's like one of the most consistent breaks. So there's always a wave. And that's the funny thing about being from Narrabeen, like no matter how bad it gets, like we only surf Narrabeen when we're around here. Like hardly ever venture to the other beaches. We just surf here every day, no matter like how bad it is. It's pretty funny.
Well, I mean, I remember that from even traveling to sort of Manly for the event for years and years and years, where it's like, well, it is the most consistent spot. It's usually like got the most swell, and that's the spot you go and surf. You being a local there and also having probably the most unique perspective on how the tour is currently performing with your work done in Newcastle. Which surfers, both on the men's and women's side, do you think are going to do well at this upcoming event in Narrabeen?
Oh, I mean, I feel like Italo the last few days he's been ripping out here. I feel like he's going to be pretty hard to beat. Even like when it got a bit bigger, he was surfing incredible. And then his like small wave games, amazing too. And then on the girls' side, I feel like it's a tough one. I think that because it's a left, I think that anyone that's got, you know, that's getting like really tight in the pocket on their backhand will be ripping. But then also, you know, it'll be interesting to see like Caroline and Tati and the girls in their forehand if they're going to do some, you know, big stuff on the lefts and some good sections. So I don't know. It's hard to pick the girls. I want to say Gabriel Medina, Dimity asked him at Newcastle and was like, "You got the day off. Who are you going for?" And he just said, "Me." He wasn't even surfing that day, but he was still going for himself. So I'd love to just be like, "I'm going for me."
And what's your gig going to be like there? Are you going to be double duty? Are you going to be doing commentary and then you're going to put the jersey on? You're out there. What's going on?
A few people have asked me about that, but no, I think my eyeballs are like falling out from being on the ski last week in Newcastle. So I just have to. I'm going to cruise. I'm going to take it easy and just surf. Focus on surfing. It was really cool though being on the ski. I did love it. And just analyzing the contest so much. Like it's pretty funny. Like I was never really like when I was on tour someone that loved to get up early for the early and like hang around at the beach all day. Like I'd kind of just come down and then be there for a bit, but just kind of be off doing my own thing. But it was really good. It was a really good job for me to like just focus on exactly what's going on and like really analyze the other competitors. I'm a bit like all over the place and not very good at focusing. So it was really good to just like really see what they're all up to. So I'm hoping that maybe I've learned something.
I unquestionably you did. I do want to retrack back though onto you because your career is so fascinating to me. Let's go back to your family. How did you get into surfing? What was mom and dad like? Brothers, sisters? What was it like for you? How did you get involved in surfing?
Yeah, well, Dad grew up surfing from when he was like a teenager, lived down in Manly, and Mum and Dad met when they were like 17, 18 in Manly, and then actually moved up to Mona Vale, and we're like managing the bowling club at Mona Vale. My dad's a greenskeeper, and they have like photos of them like surfing in Bali, like back like Ulus before any of the Wurrungs are there, like in the 70s, 80s. He loves surfing so much. He's like the eternal Grom, my dad. Mum's not so much into surfing, but she loves the beach and she like literally she knows everything about surfing. And then my older brother Chris, we were like so competitive growing up, like, but I was the annoying younger sister, and when he got into surfing, that's pretty much when I got into surfing as well. And we travelled around to Grom comps together, just up and down the East Coast. So many memories just driving. Mum would drive us like all the way up to like Lennox Head, the Gold Coast, like every second weekend for a contest. And and then Chris became my coach on tour for a few years when I got on, and we did heaps of travelling around together. And I think that I would credit Chris the most for like getting me out into big waves, because we just had that really funny brother-sister relationship when we were younger where we like loved each other but were super competitive, and then the older we got, the more it was just like support team. But we were definitely competitive growing up, and so if he was paddling out, he kind of always had no fear. So I remember he'd paddle out in Narrabeen when it was like 8 to 10 foot, and I'd be like trying to get out behind him. And if I didn't go out, he'd give me so much crap. So
you can swear on this podcast. There's no worries.
Oh, we can swear. He'd give me a lot of shit.
Mark Richards said, "Fuck, we're good to go."
Put the beeps in. Beep.
That's right. Well, it's exactly right. Well, and then Chris is a fantastic surfer. I'm curious with you when you were coming up, because you had such an esteemed amateur career and junior career, and you won the World Junior Championships at home, which must have been amazing. Was there ever a point for you growing up where you thought, well, maybe I'm not going to be a pro surfer, maybe I'll do something else, or were you just locked in for as long as you can remember? Yeah,
no, it's funny. Like I just was like this like happy-go-lucky kid. Like I never really had any plans. I love surfing, and like I went through this phase where I was just like, just lived and breathed it. And until I sort of, became like 18, then I like was introduced to the world and started traveling the world by myself and having the best time. And but I feel like, as soon as I was 15, 16, I just want to surf forever. I was like, this will be the best job. But when I remember when I got on tour, and even when I started traveling alone without my mum, I was just like, I just loved traveling, and I just loved sort of being like a bit of a gypsy, just going around, and lived in America for 6 months one year, and just like loved being on the road. But it was pretty incredible lifestyle to look back on.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, you were part of the hyper esteemed 6.0 team for a period of time. And I mean that it feels like such an interesting window in time that, like, if you'd been introduced to surfing in the last few years, you'd be like, what are you talking about? But man, when Nike came in and under the 6.0 banner and put together a team, it was radical. What was that experience like for you? Yeah, that's still one of like the coolest, probably like 5 years of my life. When I was 16, at the time I was sponsored by Roxy and Nike just for shoes, and they were sending us on like boat trips. Like I think one year when I was 16, I spent like a month or like over a month in Indo by myself, just on boats, just like jumping around different boats and like just surfing epic, amazing waves. Like I just remember those years, just like I was just surfing perfect waves. And then I think, and it was just incredible. Like the Leave a Message film came out, and that was just awesome. Like such a incredible film and like moment for women surfing. It was just like us, like the little young guns that just like, we were all competitive and fierce, but also kind of like so young we didn't really know what we were in for. None of us were on tour yet. We were just like all under 18, or I think maybe I was 18 at the time. But it was pretty awesome. And even just like, I remember Nike, they'd fly me to New York. I did a photo shoot with Annie Leibovitz. It was like this unknown little... As you do.
Yeah. And the funniest thing is I was like 17, unknown Australian Grom, and they're like, oh, we're going to put you in this campaign with like Maria Sharapova, Hope Solo, and like this crazy lineup of like all these like goddesses of sport. And I was just this Australian unknown surfer girl plonked in the middle, getting shot by Annie Leibovitz, like not really even knowing how incredible she was. And then I just remember her being like, I shot Rihanna yesterday. And I was just like, oh my God. And then she's been like a hero since then. But it feels wild to think that I didn't even hardly know who she was. And then, all those experiences, just like going around and doing a bunch of pretty incredible stuff alone as well. Just like I really took the reins and just had an amazing few years there.
And then there was the really, and then it's almost like a tall tale at this point, or mythology around when Nike decided, okay, look, since we own Hurley, we're going to be folding our surf program into the Hurley program. And you, I think you almost went directly to Billabong, but you can correct me on that. What I do want to see if you'll tell us anything about was there's an infamous story about a meeting of the Nike team and the Hurley team in Hawaii, where the Nike team was told, all right, you're going to be putting H's on your boards now. How do you feel about that? Number one, you don't have to tell us what you don't want to tell us.
No, I wasn't invited to that meeting, but it sounds like it could have been something that happened. But no, I wasn't. I wasn't at that house. I was probably at a house. I was probably at the surfer bar.
That's right. You got a text message going like, "What? What's happened?"
No, I probably didn't even have like working reception or like I probably had like some weird credit thing going on. They've sent me the message, but I'm like on like a boost and had like run out of credit. Run out of my T-Mobile credit, yeah.
But you did go to Billabong almost right away, right?
I went to Billabong. I think I was with Hurley for like a couple of weeks, but because my contract was up that year, I ended up and I was almost going to sign with Billabong a few years earlier, and then I went with Nike, and then had the opportunity to jump ship then, and I haven't really looked back since. It's been incredible. I think 8 years at Billabong now.
And I mean, look how you've been so productive. We'll count the lineup podcast as part of that too. But for your tenure on tour,
you're representing Billabong in the back there.
I do. I got my hands on an Andy board.
So sick.
Don't tell Evan. You mentioned your time on tour, and I definitely want to get to the post-tour stuff too, but I do want to talk a little bit about your time on tour as well, because as we talked about, and as was my professional opinion at the time, so talented, could get the results. You mentioned that for you early on, not having those expectations on tour was an advantage for you, and then as soon as you became self-aware of some of the attention and the pressure is when things started to get challenging. Is that right? Yeah,
and I think it was just, I think I just started surfing completely fear-based. It was just, I was so fearful of like falling off tour, losing, disappointing sponsors, just not being what I thought I was going to be. Like I just literally was so scared and I just remember like being at Bells one year and just started having like this panic attack in a heat, and I just like couldn't control those feelings of just like being a failure. And it's just, I look back now and I just so wish I could just shake myself and be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you so scared of this? And it's just so funny because as soon as I started surfing big waves, I remember being out in Jaws and just going into this zone, and I just like, it wasn't even fear. I was just like, why can't I get into that zone in a heat? And I think that's been like probably the coolest thing that I've learned just over the last few years is like there is this space I can go to where I'm just so like just in the zone and just only not even focused about what could happen if I fall off this bomb wave. It's just like more focused on making it. And I'm just like, why couldn't I switched that over. I mean, I think it was just being young and not really knowing myself and just being a bit lost along the way, and confidence. I think all those things, wrapped together.
Well, and it does sound like there was a little bit of overlap with you starting to get the bug and sink your teeth into surfing waves of consequence, and sort of the end of your CT tenure this time around, because I think you're coming back is my call. But did that? I'm curious. Like once you did get the bug for big wave surfing, did it feel like the volume got turned down a little bit on the CT for you, in the sense of like, was it hard for you to be motivated to surf? I mean, it's funny, we talk about it. I was talking to someone about this the other day, and we were like, look, it's we go to all these Dream Tour locations, but even the Dream Tour locations on great swells, often they're like really lully heats, because those really great heats are kind of like not the entire day, you know? And so sometimes it can be really hard to be motivated. I'm wondering if your attention just got drawn into sort of big wave riding once you got the bug for it. Yeah, well, it's so funny because like I was actually talking to someone about this a few days ago. I had all of my best results ever after going on like a big wave surf trip somewhere. Like I won the World Juniors like 3 days. I remember I got home from P-Pass like the day before, and I remember people being like, why aren't you at Narrabeen training? And I was like getting like the best barrels of my life at like 8-foot P-Pass, and then I won the Australian Open, and I literally got back from P-Pass again like a few days earlier, and like
I remember I had like reef cuts and like infected cuts all over my feet. And I was surfing at Manly and it was 2 foot, and I just somehow had this like confidence. And I think it was just me, like when I was doing so many contests, I would like lose that feeling of soul, just like feeding my soul with these beautiful, amazing waves that I loved riding so much. And I don't know, like just obviously doing the CT and the QS and probably doing like 20 contests a year for like four years in a row. And I remember I got to like 2016. So I'd been on tour for 5 years, and I just felt burnt out. And I was like, I haven't been barreled. I haven't been surfing these good waves. Like I remember just like getting to that year in 2016 and being like, I just need to go. Like in between every contest, I'm just going to go chase a swell. Like I need to go surf. And I remember, that was the year when I won the Oz Open and had like an amazing year on tour. I think I got my 10 in Fiji, and I did a bunch of trips to Fiji, and I kept like making such an effort to just go get waves and like sort of feed my soul and like actually feel like a surfer. And the more I did that, the more I got my confidence back. And then at the same time, the more I like started being like, oh my God, this is so much better than competing at the moment. Like I was just so happy, like the happiest I'd been in so long, because I was just surfing, and it was for me. It wasn't for anyone else. It wasn't, the expectations were gone. Like I was just like the happiest I'd been in years. And then when I went to Jaws, it was kind of like the more I'd go to these waves, the more I was kind of like, oh, like the tour doesn't really, like it's not as fun, and I don't really care about winning anymore, and I just wanted to do that. So I think, it's pretty cool the way everything's like turned around. Like it seems like I couldn't even script being here right now, having 4 years off, chasing waves and like truly like feeding my soul and pushing myself in big waves, and then to be back and like surfing this CT at Narrabeen. Like it does seem, if someone told me this was like what was going to happen a few years ago, I'd be like, no way.
Well, I definitely want to get into a couple of more topics, and we've got some listener questions for you. But first, we're going to take a quick break to get a word in from our sponsors. So we'll be right back. So 2016, 2017 is winding up, again, what I'm calling phase one of your CT career, because I'm forecasting great things on the horizon.
That's cool.
And you're talking about being fulfilled, chasing big waves. Is there any, and that's on the positive side, is there any kind of anxiety you're feeling about leaving the championship tour? Are there any uncomfortable conversations you have to have with your sponsors? Like, what is that process like for you, kind of going into a little bit of an unknown at this point?
Yeah. Well, at the end of 2017, when I fell off tour, and there was like this moment where I thought maybe I could have got the injury wild card and got back on. But when I didn't get that, I was just like, this is it. Like this is the perfect time to go and do something different and chase. Because I'd been thinking about it in 2017 after I'd gone on all these big swell trips. I was just like, should I just go for it? And then as soon as I went to Jaws, got the taste of Jaws, got completely worked at that wave. I think a lot of people were like, all right, cool, you're just going to go back to the QS next year. And Jaws happened in 2016. I got injured, missed the first half of 2017, then fell off. And then I think everyone was like, all right, cool, well, you're going to go back on the QS and forget about the big wave thing. You're all healed up now. Get back to normal. And I was just like, nah, like I think I just need to like totally go off and do my own thing. But, just on paper, it just didn't really look that smart, or it just looked like a really bad career choice, I think, just because it was like this, like what was I going to do? Just like go be a free surfer and like big wave surfer, and there's no money in that really. Like it's just like I had no real experience. Like all I'd really done was like gone to Jaws and blown out my knee, and I was going to like throw away this whole career I'd worked for years to go and like, like it was just such a big unknown. I remember, talking to Billabong about it. They're like, oh, okay, like, we'll support you. But I think they didn't really know like what my plan was. And then I remember, like, especially here, like, everyone at Narrabeen were like, are you going to retire? Like, why aren't you doing the QS? Like, what are you doing? Like, I remember that there was, like, these few months where everyone was like, what are you doing? And I felt like I had to, like, elevator pitch my life. Like, oh, well, got this dream of, like, doing big wave things. And, but because I hadn't really done anything yet, It was kind of just like, everyone's like, what are you doing? Are you, like, going to be retired at 27? Or, like, anyway, like, I think, I didn't really know where I was going. And so that was, like, this moment where I did feel this massive sense of, like, holy shit, have I just thrown away, like, am I throwing away something too good? Does this make any sense? But I just had this, like, pull to go and do it, and just, I think I just knew I needed it. So it was definitely hard to tell people about and explain, because I just had nothing to show except, like, a torn MCL. And but yeah, like, I think as soon as I went down to Shippies, just go watch a swell, and ended up, it's like this infamous shot of me doing a cartwheel over, like, a 12-footer there. And I think as soon as everyone saw that, they were like, okay, she's either going to kill herself, but, like, okay, we get it. Like, this is what you want to do, but, like, don't kill yourself. Like, I just, like, went down there with sort of no experience as well. Like, the way I sort of did at Jaws, just threw myself into it, kind of probably to be like, this is what I want to do, but, like, I don't know how to do it yet, so I'm just getting smoked. But yeah, after that Shippy swell, I was like, that's it. Like, I'm going to go back to the start. I'm going to, like, actually do this. Like, I'd had the taste of Jaws. I'd had the taste of being in the lineup at Shippies, and I was like, I'm sure that this is what I want to do, and I don't even have to explain it to anyone. I'm just going to try. And that's where Undone was sort of born, from that Over the Falls at Shippies. And Steve Wall, the director, we were just going to maybe make a web series that year, and then we just started filming everything, and somehow turned it into a watchable film. But,
and
like,
not without setbacks, right? Because
totally.
Chris's injury, your injury, car troubles, but it's one of those things. It feels like another illustration of your approach, which is really sort of positive and persevering, agnostic of what the project is. Yeah. No, and that's it. It's like even when we were like, oh, we'll make a film, I was like, like, it's so weird making a documentary when you don't actually know the story. It's just like, we're going, and, like, I kind of was like, cool, well, I want to get back to Shippies eventually. I want to get back to Jaws eventually, and I want to make waves, and I want to go there in a couple of years when I've had experience at these other, like, Australian sort of slabs. And it was also pretty bizarre, because, like, making a film about, like, a beginner doing something, like, going back to the whole start of being a big wave surfer, and, like, learning the ropes, learning all about skis, and being in the lineup and getting confidence. So it was like it was pretty much a story about failing miserably, but, like, having these, like, little wins along the way that were, like, these wins that just kept me going and kept me pushing through. And broke my brother's knee as well. Poor Chris. Collateral damage.
Poor Chris.
But it does strike me as, like, almost unprecedented, right? Because there's probably a handful of examples, if you look at the men's tour over the last, 2 decades, where there's people who've qualified, they've performed on the CT, they've done well, they haven't done well, whatever it is. And then there's kind of this at least vaguely established trajectory for them to be like, I'm going to be a big wave surfer now, or I'm going to be like a slab hunter now. But on the women's side, there really wasn't anyone that had ever done that until you. And I'm not to say that there aren't, like, women big wave surfers. They're not that there aren't women surfers that hunt slabs, but someone who's had your pedigree and trajectory of, like, won the world junior title, like, qualified at 17, like, successful on the CT, and then being like, no, I'm going to do this now. Did you have any... Was there anyone kind of in that orbit that you look to and be like, well, she's doing it, I'm going to try to do that too? No, that was the thing. Like, I didn't really have anyone to look through. Like, I knew Justine DuPont. She was on tour for a year, and then she got, like, a couple of injuries. And I remember seeing her surfing Nazare, and then, like, when we did the first ever women's big wave event at Jaws,
Justine was out there that day and in the contest, and I don't know, but I felt like it felt like a pretty lonesome journey here in Australia. I was just sort of rocking up to these big wave spots with like on my own and just meeting some of the local guys and just I had to get over this, you know, hurdle of and this like jump over this fence of being like you know, feeling like what the guy, like, you know, the guys there thinking like, who is this girl? Like, what is she doing here? Who's this like blonde CT surfer that just like is going to show up to these like crazy slabs and like, like, what is she doing? But I mean, that was like what I thought. And then I just had to be like, stuff it. I just kept going. And the more I went to these waves, the more people I'd meet and the more I think I just felt like these people, this community of big wave surfers couldn't get rid of me. And then they all started just being like, yeah, let's go. But the more I went to these waves, I'd just meet these awesome crew and there was all these, and it was like different people at every wave. So I feel like that's the coolest thing about Undone. It was like such a lonesome journey, but then we'd get to the waves and I'd meet some of the local heroes that surf those waves and they'd take me under their wing and, you know, and I remember like a lot of them saying like, they'd look at my Instagram and be like, who is this like cocktail drinking blonde girl that wants to come surf with us? Like, like what is her deal? But then like they'd meet me and they just know that I was like so, you know, like so keen to like just get waves and get barreled and like I just loved it. So I think it was, they all laughed about it at the end. I remember like every trip at the end of the day, they'd be like, you're so different to what we thought you'd be like. And I'm like, thanks. Don't read a book by its cover.
Yeah. But, and what do you have against cocktails? Chill out, everybody.
Yeah, cocktails are great.
Well, and in the big wave realm, right? Like people talk about this quite a lot where there's different disciplines even within the big wave realm. You know, there's paddling surfing, there's tow surfing, there's slab hunting. Is there... And you kind of do all of it. Is there one that you gravitate towards more than others? That you're like, this is kind of my niche within the niche sort of thing? Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, during Undone, I'm doing a lot of tow surfing. And I think that was a really perfect starting point for me to just like get onto the waves and like actually, you know, just get a few waves amongst, you know, like we kind of would go to waves that a lot of them you couldn't paddle anyway. But even just to be on the waves and see what they're like and just get used to the how they feel, like the way that these slabs draw off the reef and where you actually have to be and not going too high, like getting more waves tow surfing was what gave me the confidence and what helped me sort of learn. It was just like, you know, you can get a lot more waves towing. But I feel like now, like, because I've towed the last few years, like I really want to focus on paddling more waves. I do, obviously towing's, yeah, pretty amazing. Like it's a team and all the guys that towed me into the waves, like you feel like it's a team sport. You're like high-fiving at the end. You're like, thank you, mate. Like Danny Griffiths, a local Tasmanian guy, when he got me like the wave of my life down at Shippies, I was just like, it was such a cool moment. Like it does feel like you're in like a little team and you've just been together all day, like in the cold, and then, yeah, you're like, one more wave, and then you just have this like epic moment. But I feel like, you know, there's no better feeling than like paddling into a wave on your own at Jaws. I mean, and it's like so much more frightening. It's like it's still frightening towing in, but when you know that it's just you, you're all alone, like, and if you, yeah, like it just all comes down to you, like that, those moments when you can pull them off are like really, really special and you're absolutely stoked. So I think that's what I'll focus on more. Yeah. I'd love to focus on that.
How did your shaper, Darren Hanley, DHD Surfboards, for those who don't know, how did he respond when you went in and were like, hey, yeah, thanks for all the contest boards. I'm going to start paddling Jaws and tow surfing. What was his response like when you went in and asked for a different kind of surfboard?
Yeah, he was just like, oh, cool. And I was just like, I think I just started calling when I was like, every one of like the 5'9" step-ups you made me for Fiji has been snapped because like by this one slab that I was going to down in Wollongong. Like every single time I went there, I snapped one of his boards. I was like, Darren, like every one of your boards is snapped. I'm trying to surf these waves down the coast and I've just snapped my whole quiver. And like I probably surfed this, I did the CT for 7 years and snapped one board at Fiji. And all of a sudden I'd snapped like like 6 boards in like a month trying to surf these waves, and I think then he was like, all right, cool, we're gonna have to do like triple glass, thicker. We like just gave like pretty much like most of my CT boards gave them back, and just got a whole new quiver of these like slabby boards that like have so much more thickness to paddle into them, and they're just like way heavier. But
that's cool that you have.
He
that
was
kind
really
of support.
supportive. Yeah, Darren was so supportive.
Well, and for those listening who haven't seen it, you can find Undone both on iTunes and on Vimeo on demand, and you can find out more about it at undonefilm.com. It is more than worth your time.
Yeah.
But we're not done yet. You are, as you mentioned, in the Red Bull Tow event.
Oh, yeah.
Explain that to the listeners. How does that work? Who's your tow partner? When's this happening?
Yeah, that's the Red Bull Cape Fear event that's happening down at Shippies, and the waiting period has actually started. I think it started March 17th and goes till September. So there's like we have all that time to wait for like one swell and surf for one day and go down and drop everything and go and tow or paddle Shippies depending on how big it is. Like, I'm thinking I'll probably be towing because they keep saying they want to get like the biggest swell of the year. So I'm sure there'll be a few boys paddling. Like I can imagine Russell Bierke paddling in, and probably Ryan Hipwood and stuff giving paddling a go. But yeah, I think when it gets that big, I'll probably be towing. And I've already called up Danny Griffiths, who's like a local big wave charger down there, and I'm like, you gotta be my tow person. He was like scraping me off the rocks when I was falling down there last time, and like riding his ski on the rocks to like save me. I'm like, you're my hero. You can be my tow partner.
I love it. In 2021, it feels, or a year of the ox, it's the year of Laura Enever, it feels like the world is hopefully starting to open back up and recalibrate. You are still so young, 29. You have established yourself in the big wave realm. You've established yourself as a broadcast talent, mega talent. You're stronger than ever.
I do forget the tides, though.
For sure, yeah, of course. I'm still claiming that your talent level, especially if you're physically fit and you look physically fit and your injuries are all healed, is very, very elite. The surfing world is a little bit your oyster, I think, at this point. What do you think you're going to be doing by the end of the year? When you come back on the podcast on April 14th, 2022, what's the conversation we're going to be having? Are you going to be a CT surfer? Are you going to have your own show? Are you going to be doing more big wave stuff? What do you think is going to be happening?
Oh man, I wish I could tell you the answer. Like if someone told me back in 2014 or 15 that I would have like been surfing 10-foot shippies and surfing Jaws, I would have been like, no way. Like, I don't know, my life keeps evolving and surprising me so often, which is like so fun. But yeah, I feel like no plan's sort of the best plan right now. And I mean, I look at Steph and I'm like, man, you just keep surfing better and better. And she's like one of my inspirations. And I think being around these girls on tour, I'm like, could I do this again? Like, do I have that competitive fire? Like, can I switch it on? And yeah, like I feel like I still love surfing so much, so I could do anything. And
what about free surfing around the event in Newcastle? Were you ever out there with some of the CT girls and being like, yeah, my turn was a bit bigger than theirs?
I feel like all the girls are ripping at the moment. Like I'm hoping not, but I'm hoping I'll put on a good performance at Narrabeen here and just, but like, yeah, all the girls, I've had a lot of things going on, so I'm not like putting massive expectations. Like I would consider myself like a massive underdog just because these girls have been like training and preparing, but I feel like my preparation's been super different. It's like not the preparation I'd usually do, but I feel like it's more mental preparation, more just the feeling of like being like so comfortable with who I am and where I am at the moment that it's, I just want to focus on getting the waves and in this contest and, just surfing really well. But,
But that also sounds like the same headspace that you had when you were first on, the zero expectations, and that's the one you want.
Totally, exactly. Like there's literally nothing to lose now, and I feel like I don't have anything to prove. Like, which is literally what I felt when I got on tour. So I feel like if I can I don't think I'm going to lose myself again. So I think that, anything's possible.
Do you think go on.
The other thing is they're putting more and more good waves on the world tour, which is very enticing. Pipe, chopes, like these are all the waves that I want to go surf. Like Fiji was always like my favorite place to ever go on tour, and I just like lived and breathed going to those like bigger spots. So I feel like with that in mind, it's like I'd love to maybe give it a go, but nothing, we'll see.
Come on back. We'd love to have you. The wave at Narrabeen, this is my last question on Narrabeen, and we'll get to listener questions. Yeah, no. Do you think that it actually provides a local advantage? Is it the kind of spot where, I understand, speaking for yourself, you understand the banks, you understand the tides, you understand the scoreable waves. Do you think that gives you a bit of an advantage over the rest of the field?
Yeah, I think it does. I think Narrabeen is it's a pretty tricky wave. Like when it's with this south swell, it's going to make it, there's going to be some rips, there's going to be some current. Just like at most beaches in Australia, like I feel like Australians are so comfortable in beaches, and everyone, especially from down in the Sydney area, like, or between here and the Gold Coast, like there's so many amazing points up on the Gold Coast, like, but then I feel like there's so many of us surfers from in this middle area of the East Coast that are just like they just really love beaches and really like get them. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think the Brazilians are also going to go really good here because they also love beaches. I think it's just going to be whoever can pick apart the bank and find the best waves, really. But I think there'll be some fun waves.
I think there always are fun waves in there.
Yeah, there's always something fun.
We put questions out to the Instagram community to see if anyone had any for you, and we had to whittle them down because we had a couple hundred, but we did get them down to 3. First question is from Sergio Sandgerman. I definitely screwed that up. What is harder, Laura, surfing big waves or competing in a CT? I feel like we've been talking about that the whole podcast. Yeah, totally.
Oh, man, I'm going to try to keep this answer short because I just blabber on. But I obviously physically surfing big waves is so much harder. Mentally for me, competing was harder, but I'm hoping I can switch that around and just say that big wave surfing is way harder. But they're hand in hand mentally for me at the moment. So hoping to switch that around there.
All right. Calum.Biathrow asks, what is the most motivating thing for you when you don't want to get out of bed?
Coffee. No, I think, like you always feel better when you get out of bed and get moving. Like for me, sometimes when it's like cold and like the waves are crap, like I'll just be like, okay, just jump in the car, go for a drive and check the surf. Like I love just going for a drive and getting coffee and just getting out of the house. Like you always feel so much better. But I think
what's your coffee spot?
Oh, Zuby in Narrabeen. It's a good spot. I tried to start making my own coffee at home, but I just like actually love going and like just getting a coffee and checking the surf. Something about doing that, you're like, it's just, it's awesome.
It's a little ritual. I'm all for it.
Yeah. Getting out of the house, doing this. There's nothing better than a surf check.
Last one from the Instagram community. I am Matson asks, what video section did you watch more than any other as a Grom?
Oh, man. 2. Endless Summer 2 was, like, my all-time favorite movie. Loved that. I remember just, like, watching TJ Barron on, like, that he was, like, 5 years or 6 years old. Yeah. And he was on the bodyboard on the the mechanical wave. And then I always remember, like, I remember going to Fiji and being so scared of sea snakes because I think Pat O'Connell and, they were like, there was a sea snake and I remember being there. I was like, so scared of them. But that and then 3 Degrees with, that was an amazing film. Sorry.
No, don't apologize.
I loved just watching like Mick and Joel and Dingo, just like the way that they surfed when they were like groms and then going through, to being adults.
Who was your guy? Who was your guy that you had to pick out of the 3 degrees? Which one did you, if you're like, if I have to surf like one of these surfers, who is it?
Oh, that's a hard one. Probably Nick, yeah. Nick or Joel. They all just freaking surf incredible. That's like a really tough question.
It's tough.
I do love those clips of Mick just running around with like his like bright blonde hair and just like it's just I think it's so cool
his
seeing
hairline's growing into his eyebrows.
Yeah.
It's like, it's good.
Yeah, no, it was so cool. Love that film.
Good answers. Well, we have one final segment. This is the lightning round. So this is 10 questions. You answer as fast as you can.
Oh crap.
If you could only have one board set up for the rest of your life, single fin, twin fin, thruster, quad bonzer, or finless, which would you choose?
Oh man, it's so hard. I'd probably have to go twin fin.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Burrito or pizza?
Burrito.
Last book you read?
Oh, that's hard. There's not many books in my life. There's a whole lot of them. They're all unread.
Best surf film ever? We just can't answer that one, but you got to pick one.
Oh, Endless Summer too. I love it.
One wave you never have to go back to?
I never have to or want to.
Either way.
Oh, that's hard. Like a part of me wants to say the right because it was just like the scariest place on the planet, but like I know because it like defeated me, I have to go back. But like it gives me shivers to think I'm going to go back there.
If you only get to surf one wave for the rest of your life?
Cloud break.
Best person to share a lineup with?
Steph. She's pretty good. Steph and Dimity. Can they be one person?
Yeah, sure.
They're so fun.
We have to come up with like a celebrity couple name for him though. So it'd be like,
oh yeah,
Stephanie.
Yeah, Stephanie. That's a good one.
Dimif or something.
Diminani.
There you go. Yeah. Worst person to share the lineup with?
Oh, brutal. Who catches like a billion waves? I literally, it's like a really hard one. I want to say just like, probably Gabby because he just catches so many waves and just paddles so fast. But then also it's amazing sharing the lineup with him and seeing him just absolutely rip. But like anyone that paddles faster than me is the worst person to share the lineup with. They just paddle around everywhere.
The top 34 come up a lot as an answer for that, so don't worry about it. All right, last one. Finish this sentence. I will next achieve a state of happiness by
taking my dog for a walk.
Wonderful. Laura Enever, thank you so much for coming on the Lineup podcast. Everyone, if you haven't done it already, check out Undone. It is amazing. And good luck in Narrabeen.
Thank you, guys. It's been awesome chatting. I hope I didn't bore your brains out.